July 12, 1943, 8:30 a.m., Prokhorovka, Soviet Union. Dust choked the air as engines roared to life, the ground trembling under the weight of steel beasts locked in a deadly dance. What would you do if your tank, your only shield in the chaos of the largest armored clash ever seen, ran out of ammunition? Would you flee or find a way to fight on? In the heart of this inferno, one T-34 crew faced that exact nightmare, their vehicle battered, their options gone, yet they pressed forward in a move that defied logic, using sheer momentum and flames as their weapons. The Battle of Prokhorovka was unfolding, a whirlwind of fire and metal where hundreds of tanks collided in a brutal symphony of destruction. Captain P.A. Skripkin, commanding his T-34, scanned the horizon through the narrow slit of his periscope. Smoke billowed from distant explosions, the acrid smell seeping into the cramped interior. His crew, driver, gunner, loader, worked in tense silence, the clank of shells loading echoing like a heartbeat. "Forward! Follow me!" Skripkin shouted, his voice cutting through the din as he led a group of 15 tanks into the fray. The enemy lines loomed ahead, hulking shapes of tigers and panthers, their guns swiveling with lethal precision. Shells whistled past, one grazing their turret with a screech that made teeth rattle. The T-34 lurched, firing back, the recoil shaking every bolt. Skripkin's gunner zeroed in on the tiger's side, the weak spot exposed in the confusion. Boom! The round struck true, disabling the massive machine, smoke pouring from its vents. But victory was fleeting. A retaliatory blast from another tiger slammed into their hull, then another. The tank shuddered violently, alarms blaring as fire licked at the edges inside. Skripkin felt the sting of shrapnel, blood warm on his uniform, but adrenaline surged. "Get out!" he ordered. But the driver hesitated, eyes fixed on the enemy. The crew pulled their wounded captain free, dragging him to safety amid the hail of bullets. Yet the driver, unnamed in the records but heroic in action, leaped back into the inferno. The T-34, now a blazing torch, engine screaming, charged straight at SS Staff Sergeant Georg Lech's Tiger. The impact was cataclysmic, metal grinding against metal, sparks flying as the two giants collided. Flames engulfed both, the air filled with the roar of exploding ammunition. Lech, keeping his composure, reversed just in time, but the ramming T-34 had delivered its final blow. This wasn't just survival, it was defiance, a testament to human will in the face of overwhelming odds. The fields of Prokhorovka bore witness to such acts, where creativity in combat turned desperation into legend. As the smoke cleared, the question lingered. How far would one go when all conventional means failed? This crew's choice echoed through history, a shocking reminder that in war, the line between valor and madness blurs. The sun hung low over the vast steppes, casting long shadows on the scarred earth, where the fate of nations hung in the balance. This event, etched into the annals of armored warfare, highlighted the ingenuity born from necessity, where a single act could ripple through the larger conflict. The Battle of Kursk, of which Prokhorovka was a pivotal part, stood as a turning point on the Eastern Front during World War II, shifting the momentum in ways that would influence the war's outcome. In the spring of 1943, after the brutal winter battles around Stalingrad, the front lines had stabilized into a salient, a bulging pocket of territory jutting into enemy lines near Kursk. This geographical anomaly, roughly 150 miles wide and 100 miles deep, became the focal point for Operation Citadel, a massive offensive planned to pinch off the bulge and trap the forces within. The opposing sides had spent months preparing, digging extensive defenses, amassing troops, tanks, and artillery in unprecedented numbers. Trenches snaked for miles, anti-tank ditches gaped like wounds. Minefields lay hidden under the soil, ready to claim any who dared cross. The T-34, the workhorse of the armored forces involved, was a medium tank renowned for its sloped armor that deflected shots, a 76.2 millimeter gun capable of piercing most adversaries at range, and diesel engine that provided reliability in harsh conditions. Weighing about 30 tons, it could reach speeds up to 34 miles per hour, making it agile on the battlefield. Its counterpart, the Tiger I, was a behemoth at 57 tons, armed with an 88 millimeter gun that could destroy targets from over a kilometer away. Its thick frontal armor nearly impervious to standard rounds. Yet the Tiger's complexity meant fewer in the field, and its weight slowed it on soft ground. Other vehicles, like Panthers with their high-velocity 75 millimeter guns and Panzervors, filled the ranks, each bringing strengths and vulnerabilities to the clash. The importance of this engagement lay in its scale and stakes. Over 6,000 tanks, 4,000 aircraft, and nearly 3 million soldiers converged, making it the largest armored battle in history. Success here could shorten the war, deplete resources, and boost morale for the victor. Failure meant prolonged attrition, stretched supply lines, and potential counteroffensives. As July dawned, intelligence reports buzzed with activity. Aerial reconnaissance spotted buildups, spies relayed plans, and both sides braced for the inevitable storm. On July 5th, the offensive began in the north and south, artillery barrages lighting the night sky, infantry advancing under cover of smoke. By July 12th, the southern pincer had reached Prokhorovka, a small village that would become synonymous with armored fury. The 5th Guards Tank Army, including units like the 18th and 29th Tank Corps, faced off against the TSS Panzer Corps, comprising elite divisions equipped with the latest hardware. The terrain, rolling hills, ravines, and open fields, favored neither side exclusively, forcing close-quarters combat where long-range advantages diminished. Rain had turned parts to mud, complicating movements, while dust from dry patches obscured vision. Crews endured sweltering heat inside their metal coffins, the constant threat of anti-tank guns, infantry with magnetic mines, and airstrikes adding to the peril. In this cauldron, individual stories emerged, like that of Skripkin's crew, illustrating how technology met human resolve. The broader context revealed a war of attrition, where production rates, thousands of T-34s rolling off assembly lines versus limited Tigers, played as crucial a role as tactics. This set up the stage for the chaos that unfolded, where one tank's desperate ram symbolized the unyielding spirit amid the machinery of war. The morning of July 12, 1943, broke with a gray haze over the rolling fields south of Prokhorovka. Engines growled to life across the Soviet lines as the 5th Guards Tank Army prepared its massive counterstrike. Captain P.A. Skripkin, leading the 1st Tank Battalion of the 181st Tank Brigade within the 18th Tank Corps, climbed into his T-34. The 76.2 millimeter gun was loaded, ready, the diesel engine rumbling steadily beneath him. His crew, driver, gunner, loader, settled into their positions, the interior already thick with the smell of oil and anticipation. Around them, waves of T-34s, T-70s, and supporting vehicles formed up, hundreds strong, advancing toward the positions held by the CSS Panzer Corps. Skripkin scanned through his periscope. "Forward! Follow me!" he ordered over the radio, his voice steady. 15 tanks surged ahead in formation, tracks churning the earth into dust clouds. The terrain favored neither side, open fields dotted with low rises, occasional woods, and ravines that could hide death. The T-34's sloped armor offered some protection, its speed allowing quick maneuvers, but frontal shots from the German 88 millimeter guns could still punch through at range. They closed fast. At around 800 meters, the first targets appeared, hulking Tiger Wern tanks, from elements of the Leibstandarte Division, their long barrels swiveling. Skripkin's gunner acquired one, the side profile exposed as it turned. "Fire!" The 76.2 millimeter round cracked out, slamming into the Tiger's flank. Smoke billowed. The German machine lurched, disabled, its crew scrambling. A cheer rose briefly inside the T-34, but it died quickly. Retaliation came instantly. A nearby Tiger, commanded by elements under 2nd Lieutenant Michael Whitman's platoon, responded with precision. Two 88mm shells hammered into Skripkin's tank in rapid succession. The first struck the hull. The second penetrated near the turret. Metal screamed. Fire erupted inside. Alarms blared, the compartment filled with choking smoke and the sharp tang of burning fuel. Shrapnel tore through, wounding Skripkin. Pain seared across his body, blood soaking his uniform. "Get out! Evacuate!" Skripkin gasped, clutching his side. The crew acted fast. The loader and gunner hauled their captain through the hatch, dragging him clear into the chaos of the battlefield. Bullets whipped past. Explosions rocked the ground. They laid him behind cover, checking his wounds. Serious, but he was alive, breathing hard. But the driver paused. He looked back at the burning T-34, its engine still running, flames licking higher. Ammunition cooked off in small pops inside. Something shifted in him. Defiance, perhaps, or sheer refusal to abandon the fight. Without a word, he climbed back into the inferno. The hatch slammed shut. The T-34 lurched forward again, now a blazing comet, smoke trailing like a banner. Ahead loomed SS Staff Sergeant Georg Lutsch's Tiger. Lutsch, calm under pressure, saw the approaching fireball. He steered directly toward it, brakes squealing as he halted, gun traversing. "Fire!" The 88mm roared, the shell striking the edge of the T-34's turret. It ricocheted skyward in a flash of sparks. No time for another shot. The flaming T-34 at full speed collided head-on. The impact was thunderous, 30 tons of steel smashing into 57 tons. Metal groaned and twisted. Tracks locked, the ground shook. Flames roared higher, engulfing both vehicles in a shared inferno. Ammunition inside the T-34 detonated in a series of violent blasts, the turret lifting slightly before settling back in ruin. Lutsch, nerves of steel, reversed hard just in time. His Tiger pulled free moments before the full catastrophe, damaged but intact, crew shaken but alive. The burning wreck of the T-34 smoldered, a testament to one man's final act. Around them, the battle raged on in fragments. Soviet tanks pressed forward in waves, closing to point-blank ranges where their guns could find weak spots on the heavier German machines, sides, rears, tracks. German Tigers and Panzerwehrs fired methodically, their superior optics and firepower claiming many at distance before the melee swallowed them. Dust and smoke reduced visibility to mere dozens of meters. Tanks appeared like ghosts, trading shots at spitting range. Crews reported hearing the clang of ramming, the whoosh of flames, the cries over open hatches. Losses mounted brutally on both sides. T-34s brewed up in seconds when hit in ammunition racks, bright fireballs marking their ends. German vehicles, though tougher, suffered when flanked or hit repeatedly. Infantry darted between the hulks, magnetic mines in hand, anti-tank rifles cracking. Air support strafed overhead when the skies cleared momentarily, adding to the carnage. In this sector, Skripkin's battalion and others pushed hard, disrupting the German advance. The driver's act, ramming when all else failed, became one vivid thread in the tapestry of desperation and resolve. No ammunition left in many cases, crews improvised, using speed to close, side shots, even ramming to disable tracks or jam turrets. The technology, sloped armor versus thick plates, high-velocity 88mm versus reliable but outranged 76mm, met human will in raw form. Twists came fast. A disabled Tiger might still fire its machine guns, cutting down exposed crews. A T-34 could swing wide, using terrain to mask approach, then strike unexpectedly. Heroics emerged in pockets, a loader hand-feeding rounds under fire, a driver weaving through shell bursts. Losses were heavy. Burned hulls dotted the field like broken toys. Crews lost to flames or shrapnel. Yet the momentum shifted subtly. The Soviet pressure prevented a breakthrough, forcing the German units to consolidate defensively. The clash at Prokhorovka, though chaotic and costly, marked a grinding halt to the southern pincer of Operation Citadel. As the sun climbed higher, the intensity peaked in swirling dust and fire. The remaining T-34s of Skripkin's group and waves from adjacent units pressed into the German lines. Close-range duels erupted everywhere, tanks maneuvering within 50 meters, guns blazing point-blank. One T-34 crew out of main gun rounds reportedly used their hull to shove a Panzer IV off balance, allowing infantry to close with grenades. The driver's final charge had set a tone of unyielding resolve. His blazing ram not only damaged Lech's Tiger, but symbolized the shift. When conventional firepower failed, creativity and sacrifice took over. The impact shook the immediate area, drawing attention, perhaps buying seconds for other Soviet vehicles to reposition and strike. German commanders, including those near Wittmann and Lüttich, held their ground with discipline. Tigers reversed or pivoted, using their firepower to thin the advancing waves. Yet the sheer mass of Soviet armor, despite heavy attrition, overwhelmed isolated positions. By midday, the battlefield was a graveyard of twisted steel, burning fuel, and silent hulls. The climax resolved not in a single decisive blow, but in exhaustion. Soviet forces failed to destroy the A2 SS Panzer Corps outright, but they blunted its advance completely. No breakthrough occurred toward Prokhorovka's key points. The German offensive stalled, Hitler facing mounting losses elsewhere, and the Allied landing in Sicily, called off Citadel days later. What was learned? In armored warfare, technology sets the stage, but human factors decide the play. A T-34, even empty of shells and ablaze, could still fight, through momentum, fire, and unbreakable will. The lesson echoed. Desperation breeds innovation, and resolve can turn the tide when odds seem impossible. The fields around Prokhorovka bore scars of that truth, a brutal reminder that battles are won not just by machines, but by those who refuse to yield. The dust of Prokhorovka eventually settled, but the echoes of that day never fully faded. What remains are fragments, twisted hulls half buried in the earth, faded photographs of young faces staring out from history books, and scattered accounts that try to capture moments too violent and too human to be fully explained on paper. Captain Skripkin survived his wounds, though the scars he carried were both visible and invisible. His driver, whose name history did not preserve in the same detail, vanished into the statistics of the battle. One more name among the thousands who did not return from the field that July morning. In the wider lens, Prokhorovka became one of the most intensely studied episodes of the entire war. Analysts still debate the exact numbers. How many tanks actually collided at once, which side suffered more irreplaceable losses, whose tactical decisions carried the greater weight. Yet beneath the maps and the figures lies something simpler and more enduring. The raw fact that men, when cornered by fire and steel, sometimes choose to answer destruction with one last defiant act. The burning T-34 that charged forward when it had nothing left to fire was not the only such moment that day. Similar stories. Tanks used as battering rams, crews fighting on with pistols and knives after their main guns fell silent, appeared across the battlefield in small, desperate clusters. They were not decisive in the grand strategic sense. They did not single-handedly stop an army. But they did something perhaps more lasting. They reminded everyone present, and everyone who later read the records, that machines do not fight wars, people do. When ammunition runs dry and the engine still turns, when the flames are already inside the fighting compartment and escape is still possible, the choice to climb back in and drive straight at the enemy becomes a kind of final signature. It says, "I was here, I did not run. I answered violence with whatever I had left, even if all I had was momentum and will." Those few seconds of collision, metal grinding, fire roaring, the sudden violent halt, captured something universal about conflict. They showed that courage is not always measured in victories or decorations. Sometimes it is measured in the refusal to accept that the fight is already over. The fields around Prokhorovka are quiet now. Wheat grows where Tigers and T-34s once burned. Yet the story lingers, carried forward in books, in veterans' quiet conversations, in the occasional documentary that pauses on a grainy photograph of a wrecked hull still smoldering 80 years later. It reminds us that history is not only written by the generals who draw arrows on maps, it is also written by the driver who, with his tank ablaze and empty, decided the next 30 seconds would belong to him. I've just said what's recorded in history. You should find out the real truth yourself. We have written the sources from which we got this story in the description of this video. And we have always been and will be supporters of the oppressed, regardless of their color, race, or country. This world and its creator are also with the oppressed. Comment your thoughts below on this incredible act of defiance in the heat of battle, and subscribe for more forgotten WW2 stories that history almost buried. See you in the next WW2 story.